might just be super interesting for people to hear about your journey. You small town in a small place, and look at you now.
Yes, Philadelphia. I actually grew up making everything I wore, but I was told that I had an ability for languages. So I was majoring in French. So my first risk, I guess, was at 18 going to spend my junior year abroad in France all by myself, I mean, with a group, but all by myself. But the interesting part of it was that on the ship on the way back, there was a terrible storm and we were a day late and it was really awful. And there were only a few people who were able to have dinner, and included in which were two buyers from Strawberry and Clothier in Philadelphia. And they had been to Paris to the couture shows. Now I'm going back to Mississippi to teach French. I got off the ship. I had a friend who had moved to Philadelphia. I called her and I said, can I come stay with you? And I called my parents and I said, I'm not coming home. I'm going to be a buyer in a department store.
That's fabulous.
I didn't have the nerve to ask the ladies for a job. So, the only job you could get was making 2 cents an hour and, 2% commission or something. So I got myself a job at the University of Pennsylvania Hospital, and having no idea what Wharton was. Started taking night classes at Wharton, and went back home to finish at LSU because I couldn't afford Wharton, and went to work for a department store in New Orleans, and that was the beginning.
Wow. And what attracted you to that? Like what was the spark that got you excited about?
Well, fashion had always been really important to me, and in the South, how you look was really always very important. So as I said, I'd made everything I wore when I was growing up, and it sounded to me like they'd been to Paris, they'd been to couture shows, they did it 2 times a year or 4 times a year. I mean, I thought, wow, that's much better than, like being, I hate to say it, but being a teacher of French, which I'm sure nobody in Mississippi really wanted to learn. And my first job was great because I got promoted and got to be a buyer and a merchandise manager at a very early age. But I began to hit the ceiling. And so I was offered a job to move to New York to work for May Department Stores, which owned the Heck Company in Washington and May Company LA and May Company Denver. It owned about 13 different stores. And they were looking for somebody to run their international division from a merchandising point of view. And they wanted somebody with retail background, with women's clothing background, because that was the biggest part of the import business. So this is very early in the department stores going out and doing their own imports. So it was, there weren't that many people who had a lot of experience. So I took the job thinking I'd be there for 2 years and I'd be getting my MBA in retailing, and was traveling all over the world, mainly Asia and Europe, deciding what we were going to buy where. And it was a great experience, and I learned so much. And then I applied for a job, and didn't get it. They gave it to some guy from Brooklyn.
Inside the company?
At May Company, within May Company. And they said, she's not tough enough.
What? You? Did they know you?
Anybody who's ever worked for me laughs really hard when they say that. So I realized there was a glass ceiling, and I got offered a job. I think this is an interesting lesson. I got offered a job to turn around a tiny little division of a big conglomerate, Guff and Western. And it was in the accessories business, which I had a little bit of experience in. And I said no. And they called me back about 2 months later, 3 months later, and said, we'd like to talk to you again. I guess that nobody else would take the job. But in the meantime, I'd figured out what I would have done. And it was when, in the 70s and 80s, women went from being 28% of the workforce to 48% of the workforce. So you had this huge influx of women coming into the workforce for careers, to really build their careers. And nobody was making accessories for them. Liz Claiborne was a $100 million business, still private. So I went to them and I said, can we have the license for Liz Claiborne accessories? They said yes. And, I was happy, but I was also scared because we had to be doing $10 million at the end of the 5th year in order to get the automatic renewal of the license. No, no
Wow.
accessories company was a $10 million company in those days. And we did 50 in our
That's
fifth
amazing.
year. Yeah.
That's amazing.
And there's a whole story about the contract, but Liz Claiborne had the rights to buy us for assets if we were ever sold. We got a
Wow.
$50 million company that's got like maybe $12 million in inventory.